It's not live.
Mr. Chairman, we are live and recording. You may gavel in the meeting when ready.
Thank you. Good morning. The open meeting of the federal election for Thursday, Federal Election Commission rather, for Thursday, December 12th, 2024 will come to order. We have to start with a special motion, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the Commission consider statement of policy regarding the notification of respondents and matters under review remanded from a challenge pursuant to 52 U.S.C. Section 30109A8, and that the Commission determine pursuant to 11 CFR 2.7B1 that business so requires and no earlier public announcement was possible. I further move to suspend the rules on the timely submission of agenda documents in order that the Commission may consider the late submission of agenda document number 24-55-A.
Thank you very much. All of those in favor of the Vice Chair's motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that motion carries unanimously. We have a very large agenda for today. We're going to move to our first substantive item, which is Draft Advisory Opinion 2024-15, Unified Libertarians of Massachusetts. We have Ms. Rothstein here to give us a presentation. We don't have any representatives for the requester. So Ms. Rothstein, whenever you're ready, if you could give us a presentation.
Thank you, Chairman Cooksey, and good morning, Commissioners. Agenda document number 24-49A is a draft advisory opinion responding to a request from the Unified Libertarians of Massachusetts. The request asks the Commission to determine whether Unified Libertarians of Massachusetts qualifies as a state committee of a political party under the Act and Commission regulations. Based on information in the request, the draft concludes that Unified Libertarians of Massachusetts does qualify as a state committee of a political party. We didn't receive any comments on either the request or on the draft opinion. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rothstein. Colleagues, are there any questions, points of discussion on this draft AO? Not, maybe we can move right to a motion if anyone's in a position. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In advisory opinion 2024-15, Unified Libertarians of Massachusetts, I move approval of agenda document number 24-49-A.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, any debate on the motion? Seeing none, all of those in favor say aye. 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 All right, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Ms. Rothstein, and everyone in the policy division. The second item on our agenda, the Brady campaign matter, has been resolved on tally, thankfully, so we can move on to the third item, which is Regulation 2024-06, requests to modify or redact contributor information, a draft notice of proposed rulemaking. And we have Mr. Campbell here. Please take your time to get settled. And I know there's also Ms. Byrd and Mr. Knopp who have worked on this matter. But Mr. Campbell, whenever you get a chance to get settled, I know we have two different drafts on the agenda today. So if you could give us a presentation about this matter, we'd really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair Cooksey, and good morning, Commissioners. We're here to discuss a notice of proposed rulemaking regarding the modification and redaction of contributor information. Agenda documents number 24-44A and B contain two draft proposals to amend the Commission's regulations by establishing procedures for contributors or their agents to request that the Commission, in certain limited circumstances, where there is a reasonable probability the contributor may face threat, harassment, or reprisal, to modify or redact in whole or in part certain contributor information, that is, mailing address, occupation, and employer name, from a disclosure report or statement that has been filed with the Commission. The Federal Election Campaign Act generally requires contributors' identities to be disclosed in reports or statements filed with the Commission. Namely, political committees must disclose the name, mailing address, occupation, and employer name of each individual who contributes an aggregate of $200 or more dollars each election cycle. Additionally, conduits and intermediaries receiving and forwarding earmark contributions to candidates must disclose every contributor's name and mailing address, regardless of the amount of the earmark contribution. The commission, in turn, must post the aforementioned reports and statements containing the identification information on its website. While recognizing that there are important governmental interests that justify the Act's disclosures requirements, the Supreme Court has acknowledged that disclosing a contributor's identity may expose them to threats, harassment, or retaliation, resulting in a significant burden on their First Amendment rights. Accordingly, the court has required a narrow exemption from the Act's reporting requirements when there is a reasonable probability that the contributor may face such threats, harassment, or retaliation. Thus far, the courts have granted disclosure exemptions only to committees and organizations that sought to withhold the identity of their contributors due to demonstrated threats, harassments, or reprisals resulting from association with that committee or organization. The committee has also granted such exemptions via the advisory opinion process when the requesting committee or organization was able to demonstrate specific evidence of past threats and harassments. From time to time, the commission has also received requests from individual contributors who wish to have their identifying information removed from disclosure reports. And the commission granted such requests when they were supported by evidence of threats, harassment, or reprisal. Consistent with Supreme Court precedent, the commission now seeks to establish a procedure to formalize the submission and consideration of requests by individual contributors when reasonable probability exists that the contributors may face threats, harassment, or reprisal. Accordingly, the commission proposes to revise its regulations to establish a process for individual contributors or their agents to request that the commission modify or redact, in whole or in part, certain contributor information, that is, mailing address, occupation, and employer name, from a disclosure report or statement that has been filed with the commission under 52 U.S.C. Section 30104 and 3011688. For example, under each of the draft proposals, a requester must identify information and publish reports to be modified or redacted, and must state with particularity the facts that establish the probability that the disclosure of each piece of information the requester seeks to modify or redact would subject the contributor to threats, harassments, or reprisals. Statements within the request should be based on the requester's personal knowledge and accompanied by any records supporting the facts alleged and is subject to statutes governing perjury. After a determination that the request substantially complies with the technical requirements, the commission would grant the request if it determines that the request establishes a reasonable probability that disclosure of the requester's identifying information would subject the requester to threats, harassments, or reprisals. Regarding the two drafts, Draft B contains a few minor edits to the language of Draft A, but remains substantially the same as Draft A. Draft B also seeks additional public comments regarding the scope and approach of the proposal. I'm available to answer any questions the commissioners may have on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Campbell. Colleagues, are there questions for the Office of General Counsel or points of discussion? Commissioner Dickerson? No? Commissioner Dickerson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was prepared to make a motion.
All right.
Well, great. Then with my thanks to the Office of Policy for taking the pen and to my colleagues for collaborating with my office to revise Draft A, I so move that in Reg 2024-06, Commission approve agenda document number 24-44-B, which is Draft B.
Thank you. Colleagues, is there any debate on Commissioner Dickerson's motion? Vice Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am not going to be able to support the motion. I appreciate that Draft B is an improvement over Draft A, but I think this is a solution in search of a problem. As council indicated, we have in the past, the commission has been able, without this regulation, to allow certain exemptions on in individual matters where individuals have sought relief because they felt that they faced a substantial probability of threats or reprisal. So the commission already has a mechanism for doing that and has granted such exemptions in the past. And obviously there are broader exemptions that were provided under the socialist workers laws until the commission decided that those weren't necessary either. As my colleagues frequently remind me, particularly in the enforcement context, we have limited resources, and that is certainly true. We have very limited resources. We're operating right now with a lower FTE, lower number of employees than I can remember are ever operating under. It may be a historic amount. So we have to make choices, and frequently my colleagues will say this in the enforcement context, that we cannot afford to undertake investigations of complaints because we don't have the resources. We currently have hundreds of complaints pending. There are billions of dollars that we are trying to keep track of in accordance with the statute. And we have managed to authorize only 5 investigations that are ongoing right now. I think at a time of limited resources, undertaking this rulemaking, which will require a lot of resources, is not the best use of what we have available to us. I'll leave it at that, but I don't think that it is an appropriate use of our resources. I expect we will get a lot of comments. This is a diligent group of commissioners. I'm sure we're all going to read all the comments. Staff will read all the comments. We may well have a hearing. This is all going to take up a lot of time. To solve a problem, as I said, that I don't think really exists. And we have already received some comments from folks in the outside world who are watching us, including members of the Senate, who believe that this rulemaking could become a venue for undermining our important transparency mission. So while I appreciate the efforts of my colleagues to work on this, I am not going to be able to support this.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Colleagues, are there any other debate on the pending motion? Commissioner Broussard.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the comments from the Vice Chair. I did provide some edits as Commissioner Dickerson indicated colleagues working with them. I always like to step up and say where I've been involved in something. This is an NPRM and it's seeking information. And I always think that the ability for the commission to have fulsome information available for us is a benefit that we can all take into consideration when we're looking at something. So I've made no final decisions, but I'm always open to hearing what the public has to say in regards to this. So I am prepared to vote to approve this. And I'm also eager to see what comments we may receive from the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Broussard. Colleagues, any other debate on the pending motion from Commissioner Dickerson? Okay, seeing none. All of those in favor of Commissioner Dickerson's motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No.
All right, that motion carries by a vote of 5-1. Myself, Commissioner Dickerson, Commissioner Trainer, Commissioner Broussard, and Commissioner Lindenbaum in favor, and the Vice Chair opposed. Thank you very much to the Office of General Counsel for all of your efforts and continued efforts on this matter. We are going to move to our next agenda item, which is draft legislative recommendations for the year 2024. Something we've been very good about doing on an annual basis. We have Mr. Pugh here and to give us a presentation about this particular matter. So whenever you're ready, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Commissioners, before you today for your approval are 17 draft legislative recommendations for 2024 listed in Agenda Document 24-51-A. This year, we have one new legislative recommendation to protect contributor street names and street numbers from public disclosure by this agency. The legislative recommendations are divided into three groups. The first group is the highest priority legislative recommendations, and that includes a recommendation calling for an itemization threshold for conduit contributions and two legislative recommendations related to FECA's foreign national prohibition, which is a continuing priority for the commission. Increasing the compensation of FEC commissioners, the staff director, and the general counsel is also in the highest priority group. Other priority legislative recommendations include 10 more related to the Federal Election Campaign Act. And the third group includes 3 other improvements recommended by the commission. Once the commission has approved the legislative recommendations, we will provide them to the administration and to Congress as specified in FECA. Developing these recommendations started with potential topics that were suggested by FEC staff and commissioners. And I'd like to thank all the commissioners and, as always, my colleagues from throughout the agency for their contributions to this year's recommendations. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Any questions or points of discussion? Commissioner Lindenbaum.
Thank you. I am happy that once again we've agreed to a set of important legislative recommendations, and I am thrilled that this year's recommendations include this new recommendation to amend FECA's disclosure requirements to require that we protect donors' street names and street numbers from public disclosure. So I want to draw additional attention to this. The text of the legislative recommendation makes a number of important points, as is my statement on our website from back in May. And I won't repeat them here, but I will urge that members of the public, the regulated community, and congressional staff read them and join us in advocating for the change. And I'll also add that in the 7 months since this really was publicly rolled out, I've received only positive feedback from both sides of the aisle, from the good government community, and from others. And in this world, that's absolutely shocking. So this seems to me like a pretty big no-brainer that can really help participation in our elections. So I urge that everyone read it and join us.
Thank you, Commissioner Lindenbaum. Colleagues, other points of discussion or questions from Mr. Pugh? Commissioner Dickerson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Briefly, I want to thank Commissioner Lindenbaum for her leadership on this point and for flagging that there is indeed a problem in need of a solution. I'm going to have a very short separate statement on one aspect of the legislative recommendations. I'm not going to go into in detail here. But the question of the freezing of the executive schedule, I think is a serious issue up and down the government. And I would encourage Congress to think seriously about how to address that in a holistic way that holds together across the larger enterprise. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, any other comments, questions? Let me say just one thing briefly about any particular legislative recommendation, but this document as a whole, which is that historically, not to get ahead of myself of any vote, but historically, these recommendations have always been adopted unanimously by the commission, and they've included items that all 6 commissioners have agreed should be included in this document. As a result, it ends up excluding things that maybe even a majority or 5 commissioners think should be in there. But as a matter of practice and custom, we have limited it to things that are unanimous. And there's a reason for that, which is really to give a very significant unanimous imprimatur to these recommendations for Congress, so that they know that, from the most extreme ends of views on any particular issue, we agree about the importance of these issues. And I think that is an important signal for the legislative branch about how strongly we feel about those particular issues. Obviously, commissioners feel strongly that there are other things that Congress should consider changing in the law, and commissioners can and will probably continue to advocate for those things in an individual capacity. But it has always been, in my view, important that the legislative recommendations represent, again, a unanimous position of all of the currently sitting commissioners. And I hope that that is something that Congress considers in terms of the strength behind these recommendations. So with that, colleagues, unless there's anything else, maybe an appropriate motion if anyone's in a position to do so. Otherwise, I can do it myself. Vice Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to draft 2024 legislative recommendations, I move adoption of agenda document number 24-51-.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, any debate on the vice chair's motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Pugh, and to your entire team for your work on that matter. So the next item with respect to the Sample LLC donor form has been held over to a future open meeting at the request of commissioners. So we are going to move next to the memorandum for the recommendation that the Office of General Counsel conduct a review of the agency's regulations. This is a memorandum submitted by both Commissioner Dickerson and Commissioner Trainer, just Commissioner Dickerson, just want to make sure both of you. So because this is a commissioner driven matter, there's no presentation from policy. So let me open it up to anyone who wants to discuss the matter in front of us. Or not.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
go ahead, Commissioner Dickerson.
And I think the cover memo speaks for itself. It's fairly low and short. There's been a series of important Supreme Court decisions in this area of administrative law. I don't think anyone at the dais or anyone in the audience really needs a lengthy lecture on the state of recent developments in that area. The intention of this memo is to ask the Office of General Counsel to get ahead of that particular wave. In my judgment, as someone with some experience in that area, those changes represent a significant litigation risk to the commission in the short term, and I think it's incumbent upon us as a matter of good government to move expeditiously to recognize our weak points. I do want to emphasize that while this is an effort, to ask the Office of General Counsel to spend resources on what I consider a priority, that the eventual outcome of that, any memoranda, any legal advice would, of course, remain privileged. So while I think it's important that the public know that we are taking this seriously and that we are acting to get ahead of the potential risk to the agency and its regulations, there should not be an expectation from the public that there will be an eventual document on the public record. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, any other comments or points of discussion on this matter? Okay, seeing none, maybe an appropriate motion.
Go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much, sir. I move that the commission adopt the recommendation that the Office of General Counsel conduct a review of the agency's regulations, which is agenda document number 25-54-A.
Is 24 dash.
Getting ahead of myself, Mr. Chairman, it is indeed still 2024.
Okay, got it.
Much to my surprise.
24-54-A draft. Okay, understood. All right, with that correction, colleagues, any debate on Commissioner Dickerson's motion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No.
No, that motion fails by a vote of 2-4. Commissioner Dickerson, Commissioner Trainer in favor, myself, the Vice Chair, Commissioner Broussard, and Commissioner Lindenbaum opposed. All right, our next item on our agenda is the proposed revisions to Directive 1015. That is also, or excuse me, 10 and 17, and that is also being held over to a future open meeting. So the next item is the statement of policy regarding the notification of respondents in matters under review remanded from a challenge pursuant to 52 USC sections 30109A8. This is another commissioner driven memorandum. So let me open it up to anyone who seeks recognition to discuss this item.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, please, Commissioner Dickerson.
I'm a little worried after that I'm going to jinx it. But this is a joint recommendation from myself and Commissioner Lindenbaum that would respond to the procedural difficulties that are imposed by 8 litigation. I will leave it there. This reflects our current practice in recent matters, and I believe at least my colleague thought with me that it was important that we make public and sort of formalize an opportunity for due process for organizations that are caught in remands back to the commission, which is the intent of this document.
Thank you. Colleagues, anyone else seek recognition, make comments? Commissioner Lindenbaum?
I will just thank Commissioner Dickerson for working on this with me. And this is one of those things that we said, oh, we should have this policy. And I don't remember if your office did the first draft or my office did, but either way, like it got done. And it's really nice to know.
Colleagues, anyone else? Any other comments or questions? Okay. maybe another appropriate motion for this item. Commissioner Dickerson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the commission adopt agenda document number 24 -55-A, which is a statement of policy regarding the notification of respondents in matters under review remanded from a challenge pursuant to 52 USC section 30109A8.
Thank you so much. Colleagues, is there any debate on Commissioner Dickerson's motion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much to my colleagues. We are, that exhausts the substantive items for our agenda. We have some of our year-end administrative matters. First, we're going to do the election of officers for 2025. Let me just say briefly before we do that, this is a tradition we always do for the FEC. Chairs and vice chairs serve in calendar year terms, and it has always been a longstanding tradition that we rotate those positions between commissioners of both parties, and we rotate them around based on whose turn it is, and so everyone has rotations. And in the absence of turnover in the commission, people continue around on the carousel. And so with that, it is going to be my privilege to nominate for another time the vice chair for the position of chair for calendar year 2025. Colleagues, is there any debate or discussion about that nomination or motion? Commissioner Trainer?
Are you in the motion now?
Yeah, well, I'm moving the election of the vice chair here to be chair for calendar year 2025.
Okay, then
Commissioner Trainer.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd initially planned not to comment on this vote today, as my public statement from last year at the same time, same meeting, speaks for itself. However, recent developments in the last 24 hours have raised serious concerns for me about the future of the agency and its management. Back in August 2020, just 2 months after I began my tenure here, I wrote about the dangers of procedural dysfunctions that were evident at the time that I arrived here. At that moment, a minority of commissioners were endangering the careful balance crafted by Congress with FECA by preventing the agency from defending itself in court. Today, I see a similar scenario unfolding. Once again, a minority of commissioners is blocking or delaying a vote on 2 directive changes that would empower commission members to expedite the consideration of matters before us. Commissioner Dickerson and I thoughtfully crafted changes to Directive 10 and Directive 17, and as you've heard, those have been delayed. We shared them with our colleagues, made them public, requested that they be considered today. In return for our efforts, we have encountered the delaying tactics of postponing the discussion of these directives until a future meeting. We have been provided no explanation as to why the directives are being held up, when our colleagues will be ready to vote, or what objections they may have. To me, it appears to be delay for the sake of delay. I believe that these tactics are symptomatic of the tenure of commissioners who have served far beyond the statutory limits envisioned by FECA. Some might point to the statutory provisions that allow commissioners to remain in office beyond their term, a situation that I currently am experiencing myself as I approach my 5th year of service here. But I can assure you, as certainly as the sun will rise tomorrow, I will never be in a position of going into my 20+ years of a 6-year term. It is with a firm reliance upon the balanced statutory scheme that I wrote about back in August of 2020 that I find myself unable to support this nomination today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Colleagues, any other debate or commissioner seeking recognition on the motion? No, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm actually quite surprised to hear this reaction from my colleague because it's so completely routine for matters to be held over here when somebody just needs a little bit more time to think about it. Those particular directives, yes, they were made public roughly 1 week ago, and with no explanation of why they needed to be done now, why there need to be changes to the that would affect the powers of the chair going into the next year, and to say that a new directive, change to the directive It is somehow untoward to ask for more than 1 week to consider such changes. I'm baffled by that because it is such a routine matter for commissioners under all sorts of circumstances to ask for more time. So I just wanted to respond to that particular concern. Well, as I said, it's baffling to me, and it's particularly baffling to me because I feel that you and I, Commissioner, have a perfectly congenial interpersonal relationship. And I personally look forward to continuing to work with you.
Colleagues, anyone else seek recognition? Any other comments on my pending motion? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor of my motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
Any abstentions? One abstention. All right, that motion carries by a vote of 4-1. Myself, the Vice Chair, Commissioner Broussard, Commissioner Lindenbaum in favor, Commissioner Trainer opposed, and Commissioner Dickerson abstaining. Are there any nominations or anyone who seeks recognition with respect to the Vice Chair office? Commissioner Broussard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is part of the continuing tradition for the bipartisan nominations that I am happy to proceed with. I take this opportunity to nominate James Trey Trainer III, let's not forget the third, for the office of Vice Chair for the year 2025. Commissioner Trainer and I have worked together on a number of projects that have been evident for this year. I appreciate his perspective and his commitment to public service. I appreciate that for not only the commissioners here, but all the individuals in our building. So let's take that moment to thank them. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that together we represent the Southern contingency of the commission. He hails from the great state of Texas and I hail from the greater state of Louisiana. So with that, I nominate James Trainer III. James Trey, excuse me, because that's in the signature line. James Trey Trainer III for the office of Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, any debate or discussion about Commissioner Broussard's motion with the understanding it's limited to the year 2025?
Oh, sorry.
Not in perpetuity.
Appreciate that.
Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All right, that motion, excuse me, Commissioner Trainer, you're going to abstain from, oh, how gracious. That motion carries by a vote of 5-0. Myself, the Vice Chair, Commissioner Broussard, Commissioner Lindenbaum, Commissioner Dickerson in favor, and Commissioner Trainer abstaining. So congratulations to my colleagues on that. So let me take a moment of personal privilege then before we wrap up to speak about some of the staff and make a couple of remarks about the year in its entirety. First, I do want to take some time to acknowledge the staff members here at the FEC who have, particularly ones who have reached very important milestones of service here at the agency. There's a lot because there's many people who are very dedicated to this building. So I decided to cut it off at 25 years. So for those of you who've been here for 2 decades, you'll have to wait maybe another 5 years before you get recognized. But with 25 years of service, I want to recognize Maureen Glassbrook, Michelle Grant, Kimberly Humphreys, Tesbeyat Asmama, Kendrick Smith, Gina Braveboy, and Chris Jones. 30 years of service. I want to thank Latanya Prescott, Elizabeth Kurland, Reginald Freeman, Cheryl Hemsley, Marilyn Jones, William Antos, and Victoria Allen. And with 35 years of service, which is very remarkable, Miss Lisa Chapman and Miss Stephanie Watson. Those are outstanding milestones marking many days, many nights, many hours of service day in and day out to this agency. And so it really deserves a moment of recognition for all those people who have given so much to this agency. And we really do appreciate you and thank you for that work. And we look forward to seeing you in 5 years on that list because hopefully you'll all still be working here. I then want to recognize 2 colleagues of ours who won't be on those lists in the future. We have 2 colleagues who are going to be retiring at the end of this month and who deserve recognition. That's Danita Alberico in the compliance advice team and Pam Jones, who is our procurement officer. So Danita, like I said, has been on compliance advice team, which we call CAT, usually a lot of times in the building in the Office of General Counsel, working on a lot of important issues on public financing, for presidential campaigns and debt settlements, and a lot of administrative law issues. Many people have benefited from her long expertise and experience here. And Pam Jones, as our agency's procurement director, has helped us secure all the resources we need to keep the agency running. And her mission, while not appearing here up in the dais, is often central and very, very important for the running the finances and keeping our agency running with the resources we need. So I know that everyone in the building is going to miss their skill, their institutional knowledge, their work ethic, and they will be sorely missed, but we wish them well in their next chapters in retirement. So then let me make just a few remarks, I guess, about the year, as is usually traditional for a chair to do. This is the last open meeting of the Federal Election Commission for 2024, and it marks the end of a consequential and productive year. Looking back over the previous 12 months, there are many accomplishments for the commission that I could list, but to not belabor the point, let me focus just on some of the highlights. On policy, the commission's greatest accomplishments have been on deregulation and reform. Through rulemakings, advisory opinions, audits, and enforcement decisions, the commission has lessened the regulatory burdens in significant areas of campaign finance activity, including leadership PACs, coordinated communications, soft money, artificial intelligence, independent expenditure reporting, and candidate security. We have closed open rulemakings, eliminated redundant forms, and reformed internal commission procedures. I am proud of all of that, and I hope that that work will continue in the years to come. The agency has also succeeded this year operationally. Despite all the challenges of a presidential election year, our staff met the moment and continued to fulfill the agency's transparency mission. I won't over elaborate the point with excessive statistics, but suffice it to say that the compliance offices, the information division, and the Office of General Counsel all completed outstanding work in the face of significant obstacles. And our information technology teams also went above and beyond to keep the agency operational and secure. I'm also pleased that the commission made significant investments in our technology this year and in our cybersecurity, including with a grant through the Technology Modernization Fund. Finally, the commission would be completely rudderless without the outstanding work of every other division of the agency, including the Secretary's office, the CFO's office, and the Staff Director's office. Finally, this year has been a strong year for the agency culturally. We've maintained our values of collegiality, integrity, and efficiency. Throughout the year, commissioners have collaborated on a bipartisan basis, as our statute requires, to reach resolutions and forge compromises on problems in front of us to better serve the public while protecting Americans' First Amendment right to freedom of speech. And while the commission has not been without its disagreements and its controversies this year, that is a feature, not a bug, of our structure. And I expect the commission will maintain this culture of respectful cooperation going forward. But while these accomplishments are the commission's, they do not belong to any commissioner. Rather, they have been made possible only because of the dedicated work of the agency staff at every level. I thank you all. I would also like to thank my fellow commissioners for their work and dedication this year, as well as the incredible lawyers that I have been lucky enough to have work in my office as chairman. Gabby Fallon, Austin Graham, Elizabeth Kemp, and Amanda Gould are superb attorneys and counselors, and my work this year would have been impossible without them. In many respects, looking back on this year serving as chairman, I'm reminded of David Foster Wallace's essay, "A Supposedly Fun Thing I'll Never Do Again." There are a lot of frustrations that come with this role that I will not miss, but the headaches pale in comparison to the privilege of serving the country in this important position and working next to so many dedicated public servants. It has been a profound honor. Thank you very much. So with that, Vice Chair, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hesitate to try and say anything after that much eloquence, but I do want to echo your thanks to the incredible and talented staff of this agency. As I mentioned earlier, we are dramatically under-resourced and do not have enough staff to do the important work here, and yet our staff continue to rise to the challenge. And the number of people who have been here for 25, 35 years is a testament to the dedication of the really extraordinary people that work here. And I have so much respect for all of you, and it will be my distinct honor and privilege to lead this extraordinary staff into what will be the 50th anniversary year of the commission next year. And I also want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your service in particular this year. Being the chair really is an exercise in just keeping the trains running on time, and I think you did an excellent job of that. And
Thank you very much.
I have a small token of
Thank you.
appreciation. As I said to my colleagues, really, it's just the person who sits in the middle of the table and bangs the gavel. But in case you were missing that prerogative, we have a little commemorative gift for you.
Thank you so much. I very much appreciate that. Thank you again to all my colleagues for a great year. So with that, Mr. Staff Director, are there any management or administrative matters for consideration today?
Mr. Chairman, there are no such matters.
Thank you so much. We're going to stand adjourned.
Stand by.